Hello, dear Palestine, Israel, and Americans in the world. We know since semi-ancient times, if we pay too attention, we're, the uses of all natural difference have been criminally foreign influenced. I am not a lawyer. How this phrase has been left out with the telling of history's plural too, is also hyper evidential. How the existence of hyper evidential exists, but how this has been left out is also hyper evidential. It is hyper evidential where and how we all have black people's whites of eyes. All exception nature demonstration of the same thing. The other species bodies have the same quality aspects in nature. We are being shown how to use words, syntax, tactical ulterior from how we've been told formally from countries A through Z. Now, part of how this is forced by nature too is because of how nature's system is coming through this one. Everyone looked away from and didn't pay attention to the means by a breaching method that came since before modern religions messengers came. Already the sciences have become criminally foreign influenced. How come no one ever thought to think that yin yang and alpha and omega have been taught together? But it's about the hyper invisible, but still discernible. Those five identities of hyper invisible, but still discernible possession, hyper possession as itself over the value of a verb and over the value of a subject. If you pay attention, every subject, all the subjects we could think of together as all of our experience, they come with more subjects coming in. And the value of a slash between that. In other words, on paper, to show where there's active, there is the order of the finite, and there is what is too finite to fit. But it does anyways, because it's the same identity of value slash variable question, like the value of the sequence true, as it actually was. Even if everyone agrees to lie about it, nature is going to show it because everything is itself. And this is temporary slash lasting life is in demonstration of the same thing. And it uses the difference about it. Its difference is whenever there's a something that has an opposite, like temporary, lasting. Each one is to show the other one in itself comes also with what is greater than and more finite than everything. Hot and cold are not just to show the warmth. They're to show the identity of the hyper simultaneous, the identity of relativity, the identity. So nature is an additional word for identity because we need, just like the verb has additional names for itself. The verb, the present participle, the past participle, the gerund. Also about what is constant. Definite, if you all different dictionaries, a whole bunch of different dictionaries, I don't know if all of them give the simple definition. They go a gerund. I mean, for participle, present participle, they say the present participle is always formed by adding ing to a verb. But there are proofs, for example, that this is being measured and maintained. Not the proper way to teach English. And to address this too, simultaneously, the predicate is an additional name too for the verb. A main verb is a predicate. Predicate is value to English the same way, distinctly, but also non-distinctly the same way a predicate act is value to the law, which is value as means to discern collusions with a criminal enterprise, with criminal insidiousness. I'm going to say that because they have criminal enterprises since some ancient times, grouped wrong. Even when there are all exceptions in exception nature, too, and or even, in other words, because it employs the array of differences and all exceptions per a method that's using databases. So, no, for example, the identity of a country who has a citizen captive. If you're that citizen, wouldn't you want to force your country to free you? So they are forced to stay with that base, which is right. So there's sophistication that no country had before this that is increasingly left out. And this is why another reason why it's, in other words, forgiveness is not to give up. Forgiveness is to reveal a quality of fact human nature that is allowing anyone and everyone to be led by the identity of the hyper simultaneous, which is right there to answer all our questions. In other words, and we can't take our sides as names in a game that pretends that it doesn't real. In other words, a game. That's what economics are. Economic words. Economic natures of debate. They left out the breaching method. They left out the breaching method that came before religions and the nature of debate regarding it. The nature of debate regarding what they claim is science with atheists. Part of this is because there are proofs consciously, effectively, a breaching method forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded people to use the word God wrong, change them what it meant to use the word God. And then to counter this is part of the things that modern religions did, because it's a part of the science of reason, where there is a God variable that comes with and has the extent every subject has, every verb has, whether it's inflected as a participle nature, as a predicate, or as a gerund to describe how it could be and is all the time, even if it's not being used as one, a gerund, a participle nature. This is because this is the science of where and how everything is an only increasing identity of volume. And English was revealed to teach this. I read it in other words. For example, there are people with the name Mendez who are police forms with Hartford and Wethersfield and the Britain interbranch locations. Their roles with predicate acts grouped in together. And on off Fox Connecticut News, on off WFSB. And with people directly and indirectly tied with and as former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin. People tied directly and indirectly to his lawyer, Robert Chevrolet, to locations next to his lawyer's office, which is not far from the state capitol. There are things that people do as victims since some ancient times, where they'll have natures of conversations. They'll talk about their observations or even film things, knowingly, where precedents and statute has stayed criminally foreign influence collusions, where America's founders, other founders, they left us to correlate that and how quality of fact treatment nature /S qualities of fact treatment nature as criminal insidiousness, wrongdoers, wrongdoing itself, criminal enterprises, responses to them. While the overt criminal the private ones, and this insidiousness of people A through Z that had already, and the difference of that had already effectively been employed by a breaching method, which employed also employments as we know them having been corrupt, only known since some ancient times. Suits and ties counters to that, and exceptions as collusions many ways if we examine this, the premises plural. So if you say, oh, what's the premise? Or in other words, or they have emotions and passions against one aspect of what people say. So in other words, it's not hard to discern that people on all sides, in other words, are using names, leaving out how the human side that is hyper native, that is unabridged from before modern religions. They share this in common. In other words, obviously, the sciences were abridged. Nature, the syntax of humanity, is abridged, positive treatments and negative treatments at the same time. Convictions with that, opinions with that as nature, as criminal insidiousness nature. Our founders left us to communicate, to understand. With nature shows us that Jim Crow laws, for example, they were manifest where and how a breaching method left entrenched what our founders didn't have free speech to address, or they would have been sensed and heard. Everyone had to lie about their actual motivations for roles with the American Revolution, which was induced by 13 points of counter extortion within more than 13 colonies, but amongst key players, where it's still a game, but it's not the hyper game. It's not the one that reveals evolution's fruits and gives us a means out of nowhere, including especially in many ways where and how we are quality as fact achieving nature. Uses of names. See, nature is again a word for identity. Per me, I didn't read this. And per the fact that there are five, I didn't read that either. See, we have a description of proper descriptions of short words and how to describe them, how to evaluate them, and the difference. Still used effectively by a breaching method that measures and maintains also countries grouped, all groupings of humanity. This breaching method knew they would have to speak for humanity, knew they would have to speak for things relative to criminal insidiousness. One thing that is true always, that all the crazy problems where they bring them up, oh, what do you think about guns? What do you think about how they never brought up how our founders had to counter extort with the other founders, and how there was a breaching method sensing everyone and using a method with that method/s, because the method, the plural part is just by having people entertain. It's use of the republic for which we stand abridged since some ancient times, since before modern religion's messengers. Thank God for that. That means I think, and I can show with science, that per the way that God was used by the ancients, that something is its identity relationship to itself, and the value of that positive, hyper positive anyway, which is also critical because American history is about how a breaching method and tortured and enslaved everyone, fact, human nature wise, North and South America, and cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures consciously. Wherein how it knew too simultaneously the identity of its value. For example, as a human fact, human nature breaching method, singular, would be presented with those individual finite grouped and altogether negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, and names associated self value with uses of names like of countries, of locations, areas, and states, which are bodies but can only be voiced through ourselves. But this is again through and as systems all tactical ulterior than the one that answers our questions by being that which revealed why and how each of the different species, even the insects, have two eyes. All exception except there's a fish I saw on television on YouTube videos before with one eye. I don't know where that video is. But in other words, nature would have, see, if we had brought a nature that tells no lies and doesn't value the lies told by other or truths used for lies and or know that by others, even if they, so if someone could sense that, not being a nature that's pretending not to realize, or will leave it before the courts. That nature goes down to the finite details. How it got everyone to self value, blaming other things, others, or selves. Where and how everyone wants to have blamed on the right things would cause those crazy laws, witch trials, slavery laws. Everyone's sickly distinctly. Fact, human nature enslaved and forced to pretend other. The reasons for all good reasons for it used exactly the way, logically, syntactically, the way the breaching method wanted and needs. So when we were kids, we need to have the phrase criminal insidiousness used with us, for us. See, but already the school resource officers have roles with various natures of criminal insidiousness, and they have the guys they have legitimate roles with where and how there are police that are unmarked. They've been using those legitimate to hide that as they're confessing it and demonstrating it to complete strangers too through time, as ones leading up to the well. That's how relative to how they get locked into hiding foreign bodies, finite, grouped, and simultaneous. Needs to hide delusions. And forgiveness is because there is more worse than even just the grouped together. And it has collusions individually grouped together, although that body is sensed, even if that body is a majority of people, even if that body is a majority of countries. Countries that have nuclear weapons or on the verge to it already have the means to transverse the earth. We already have the means to negotiate with the rest of the earth to help us out of the tactically denatured ground before the hyper-native ground, and then additionally hyper-indigenous ground slash too, because it wants us to debate who's the better hyper-Native American. Native Americans are already better hyper-Native American in many ways, but who could better fight for their fact human nature where they had to entertain, they have to entertain approaches to law and to the defenses of themselves and of the ground before their feet, below their feet, and of their waters that they can't, that can't be entertained, and them defending themselves as a quality of fact human nature properly anyway. To understand this, we have to understand how the semi-ancient method there are proofs too that the religions were working together to get us to call it a hyper-archetypal criminal enterprise, and to understand how nature communicates with the difference between criminal insidiousness. It teaches even about that. Even a country that would, even if all the countries agreed to stay part of witch trials, even nature is going to demonstrate negative value, nature progressions, acts, and natures. Negative nature is going to demonstrate incapable, increasingly, of being the proper nature where the sciences are manifest. And then increasingly all the other locations associated with them. So all along roads and routes and manifest next to campuses. And the difference of that. Such things are employed by the preaching method, plural. And the only thing we can take it like that just by taking away its means to have that quality of fact, human nature. Left out means to follow all the identities of logic, speaking about serious that have spoken about serious things, not to attack the names because they messed up. They came through sick campuses. Now, and your tactically delusions are off if you don't discern where and how that one thing that Jim Crow law is about, witch trials are about, and slavery is about. Witch trials, even if they're made up, too. They're one thing they're about commonly is they're about predicate acts with facts method. They're about predicate acts with nature method. Nature as, I would argue, hypercriminal insidiousness. See, lawyers, I'm not a lawyer, but I could show you how to observe lawyers planting evidences, planting motivations with foreign bodies originally and still. And this breaching method, then we attack the foreign bodies. Nature also, see, in other words, nature's course, constantly, increasingly, it has us more and more needing to be grouped while simultaneously needing to be independent. And that will only cause more and more positive value nature progressions, acts, natures, and means out of nowhere that are not criminal insidiousness natures of positives, or will cause more negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. And only means to cause positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures as self-value roles with the positives and the negatives, with the negative identity of value progression, value/value progression, a negative identity of value/value progression. That means a negative identity of relationship to itself. This is what it shows us with where and how manifest per nature are the value of the subject and the predicate, no matter which language we're speaking in. Babayaros sees. This is the word that I donated to English, to, as we'll see, because we have to address criminal insidiousness. I taught best boxing. I'm not a criminal. I recorded court by accident. I recorded Hartford courts in the Britain Superior Court, Connecticut District Court people through time involved on and off campuses planting little fake things in databases, but also as roles. Because of the roles also fluent through our countries, also uses consciously of their differences, where and how they have adults since they were kids. Time pollution with fake instances is totally made up. People that don't even know each other, like a Joshua Julian. The FBI and various courts, these courts and prosecutors and their family members, they have roles with a Joshua Julian on the Facebook page of a principal child abuser. Also further recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with the police chief Centron and Officer Powers and other people recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed intercities through time. They have roles with foreign and domestic military, on and off Central Connecticut State University, and on and off Whiting Forensics, when I was a kid and then as an adult, as people who have time collusions with the whiting, with criminal enterprises and shipping locations, and the Witness Protection Program. These are also names with time collusions, also with their extended family members, and names on off the World Trade Center right before the attack, the night before the attack, other ways shortly before the attack, and other ways long term before the attack is the same people involved also with all kinds of natures of organized crime and associations with unmarked police forms, including except the difference between private ones and stuff like that. They're hiding between that. They have uses of corners of streets, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They have uses of that which is hyper evidential, which is where and how what is actually recorded with actual evidence demonstrating other than it actually than it's pretending to be in demonstration of. Because at the same time, the interbranch locations have been fabricating audio and video into their databases as collusions with a whole bunch of other countries, and then used remotely also grouped, and also by what is further keeping this the outcome slash S, measuring and maintaining what it discerned, which is what our founders communicated with discerned before us, which is what our founders communicated to communicate for themselves. Therefore, for ourselves and for the Constitution unabridged, we were not supposed to leave out how and why our founders were even made capable of, which is three ways they were made capable of counter extorting at 13 positions. People tactically strong enough where once they made them do things that they weren't supposed to do, they had to increasingly hide from the breaching method by reliances upon our founders. So that's how crazy this fact, nature, torture, extortion, slavery method was against every person, individually grouped and together, and against all natural difference. Because it is syntactically manifest with where and how things are syntactically manifest. With where and how people have not appreciated this. Because you have other being and haven't been communicated for you. You have other motivations for that. Wasting the time of words that come with revelations, uses of truth that are revelations. We have black pupils / whites of eyes. We have the same color eyes, while we have different color eyes at the same time. And there are exceptions. An exception nature is a course, and nature is a word we need to discern, not just because of our identity we know is relative to positive and negative simultaneously, where more and more positive, automatically temporary positive is being made. And many pray, vaccines. So we have to admit, a quality of fact, human nature, if someone wants to debate that the ground below suburbs are tactically denatured, let alone the cities, their logic is going to have the proofs of it too. And there are going to be uses of it by others. There have been uses of it by others. But that's going to be proofs of something other too. So, in other words, there's a method we could discern. But a breaching method used countries individually grouped and together, used our directors of our agencies, former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, his lawyer, Robert Chevrolet, co-defendants of his and their family members, also roles with unions, crimes with unions with little kids, on and off campuses, intercities, and with the names involved with the families that do school resource officers. They have roles with a whole bunch of drugs and medicines crimes. Police forms who were raised with doctors of mental health who are involved with various natures of organized crime, where they don't have the right to do that, but they're pretending they have the right to do that. In other words, they've been collusion with World Trade Center attack predicate acts and with the investigators of it. Hartford Hospital recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, has roles with the investigations of people from the war in Iraq or whoever they were there with their and involved with Hartford Hospital and people with a Mark Violet and the military next to the state capitol, off the state capitol, involved increasingly with foreign and domestic medical families, mayors, their extended family members, planting fake audio and video, wire crime acts and methods with Weathersfield Police, state police, increasingly at the same time with the FBI, other agencies, and their family members. Eric Jensen confessed, recorded, demonstrated, confirmed people with along the Berlin Turnpike with the state police involved with the Kelly Kaczmarek. Also, there are judges involved with them and their extended family members with the name Spada and that Ray Collo also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. He's one of the names. Also, Bob Chase brought up the name, confessed, recorded, demonstrated, confirmed. Phil Collo is one of the names involved with various natures of federal evidence is crime and federal rules of evidence is crime and predicate acts with them wrong and even if only wrongdoing. Bob Chase has roles with child offenders and various natures of prisoners and mental patients associated with him of his who are tactically delusions wrought. They're also involved with doctors attaching little kids and their families to fake conversations, change conversations with themselves and with others, and with the doctors and with others, with themselves as the families and with as the doctors too. Doctors are attaching little kids to fake conversations with themselves, fake fake locations with themselves and their kids, and then trying to film fake exceptions too by having people walk by. They're planting evidences. They're saying and doing things at locations where they can't go and be honest at the interbranch locations, as a breaching method knew they would. So names that on all sides of criminal and of civil cases, then again, had timed collusion also with the interbranch sticking fake things in databases, also with victims and courts appointed victims advocates and names with the hallways of the courts. Involved also with mail crimes and wire crime methods with the foreign and domestic, also personally involved with judges and prosecutors, with drugs and medicines crimes with the kids, with delusions with the kids, tactical delusions. These are people involved with Hartford Hospital's Institute of Living and the policing on off Hartford Hospital, foreign and domestic military too, don't forget. And they're involved with more child offenders and judges. There's a Judge Killian, and there are other judges before him involved, people with the name Leahy. I don't know where they live, but they're involved also. Rick C.M. Faglione is one of the ones who recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, as people on Covington Street in New Britain, Connecticut did. They've been for decades involved with people from Weathersfield intelligence community, criminally foreign influenced, and planting fake motivations too, little tricks with wire crime acts and methods connected to people. Tim O'Brien used to walk around and have conversations with neighbors in the intelligence community, and they've been using that to lock themselves in, needing to hide finite things, group things, and simultaneous realities. Like, for example, Mark Violet involved has involvements with a bunch of topics in the news regarding crimes and things, and the police have roles forging and switching names and planting evidences with the other police forms with Weathersfield Pizza too, but Weathersfield Police through time. Weathersfield Pizza has wire crimes with the Weathersfield Police. They're changing, fabricating audio and video transcripts, making fake conversations with people, planting fake motivations, and they have roles with child abusers, intercampuses too through time. Roles with very different. They were not supposed to hide a bunch of things that are recorded, people from other cities doing with my campuses in my town. And with the Wethersfield police chiefs retired, more than one of them, and the one that the one now, I don't know the other ones either. They attached me to fake conversation. They had a Chris Walters recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. He was influenced to plant evidences with judges and prosecutors in the intelligence community, people involved with the military, people involved with a Hall's Arrow too. I don't know the Chris Walters. I only know him in context where he was involved with people involved with abuses of children. It's people involved with positions at elderly homes, and on off veterans locations. Know how the veteran buildings are designed the way New York City is designed without having been addressed. How the suburbs were designed for the torture and for the extortion of George Washington, we will address with telling no lies, not valuing the lies of others told, not valuing the truths used for lies. So we must examine the qualities, aspects of fact-cheating nature, and they will reveal that criminal insidiousness, fact-cheating nature, quality, aspects, and nature behind all this. Torture is behind it. All these crazy things in the news, and World Trade Center predicate acts. WFSB is required. I asked them, in other words, they lie about their motivations. I asked them nicely, fix the news. They attached me to fake conversations with themselves. Roger Suzanne is one of the ones involved, excuse me, all along Route 3. All along, he has roles with children, with child offenders, with the intelligence community. Whiting Forensics has roles with state police involved with the witness protection program. Involved also with planting evidences with former director of the FBI and his co-defendants, and various natures of others federal criminals, and recorded ones and organized crime bodies, recorded ones who haven't been charged, even if there are police forms mixed with them, even if they're all police forms. They have timed collusions with a whole bunch of the other countries in the news. And UPS is recorded, confessed. They demonstrated, confirmed. They sought me out to confess, to communicate this, and to demonstrate it was their roles with the people involved with the witness protection program in the corner of the street near me, involved with the Joshua Stryker, involved with the Joshua Julian also, planting evidences on off the Facebook page with the principal child abuser, and more people involved with more obscure pictures and different natures of pictures with the kids. A Leahy family's got their own kids involved with that, as one of the medical families involved. Also with ones next to the campuses intercities. There's one. So in other words, we need to get them onto paper. There's also a Christina Sioka who worked for some guy who pretended he had a conversation with me. He's one of the ones who also with the intelligence community on off Hartford Hospital, who's involved with foreign and domestic military leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context and sense. Also with people in Church Street and Old Wethersfield and on off the Webb House, on off Webb House. And then they changed the names. That's also involved. And on off the witch trials place next to it, and that's the 13th place that George Washington and our other founders had to counter extort right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War. Again, there were more than 13 colonies in place. Again, the republic for which we stand inherited from some ancient times, from ancient times. We have inherited the still criminally foreign influenced version of itself since some ancient times, broken. Yin Yang and Alpha and Omega, more probably and increasingly demonstrably. It is more practical and educational to observe how it is more probable that they were revealed to be taught together by humanity working together with appreciating how and why we have the same color eyes, we have different color eyes. And there are exceptions, and there is exception nature. Again, but difference. We have this is about difference, having the same color eyes and different color eyes at the same time. And we have control over this. with love. And people don't have love. In other words, they're not letting love unless it's going to be love and as collusion. See, love needs to forget about the serious things, but then they're going to speak. People are going to speak anyway. That's why we have to have things on paper properly. So, but when you start doing that, you start realizing they've been interbranch, fabricating audio and video and transcripts and evidences into databases as collusions with names on all sides of criminal and civil cases, as timed collusions with overt criminal enterprises, private ones. So a whole bunch of people with the name DeMorrow, like a John DeMorrow, he's one of the ones involved with old Weathersfield locations with retired and standing mayors. And there's a Knapp, a police chief Knapp, a police officer Knapp, and ones with the name Mendez as school resource officers involved with FBI, with child offenders, including sexual and medical, other natures of organized crime with the kids roles. And uses of that, fabricating audio and video transcripts, falsified police reports, roles with crime scenes, roles with planting motives for that. They have it has something to do with their roles with Central Connecticut State University and their roles with names on off WFSB, on off Fox Connecticut News, WTNH fabricated emails with them. They make different natures of organized crime, also where they part subjects and they lie about being able to understand people or not when they speak clearly and when their words are actually unclear. This is also important because they have some of these are police forms with who are doctors of psychiatry and psychology. They have their patients and criminals and family members fabricating things, and they're using crime methods where they just say things, and then when they describe it, oh, but if he said that, how? In other words, Sandy Hook has roles with the intelligence community that works at Sandy Hook campuses and unmarked police forms and medical community that is involved with child abuses, including of Adam Lanza, as is recorded for further roles with us. So an O'Brien family is one of the ones through time recorded involved with uses of the campuses and of confessions, sickly distinctly from the church, but also the way the church does. There are proofs that he had been through confession. But also, these are people timed roles with overt criminal enterprises and with other agencies and other foreign bodies and fake motivations. So they have roles with people. There are proofs that there are people with Korea and involved with the rest of the leaders of the kids in backgrounds furthering fake things about me and furthering fabricated audio and video, as they did when I caught them with the principal child abuser. They're being coached to it by the police forms that had their families involved with identity theft, fraud, slander since they were kids. Also, the buildings next to Fox Connecticut News, the Mendez brothers and people with the name Domain have roles with this. And these are also people on off locations associated with Mazzucato families with the intelligence community, criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions raw, and not for Italy. They're against Italians still. These are people putting fake things, and these are fluent with a whole time collusions with a whole bunch of other countries and Saudis. They forced the collusions with them. They also the difference of when they self-value because their roles with constantly there are investigators that are constantly being used criminally foreign influence and with their family members. Central Connecticut State University has a whole bunch of family members through time with Weathersfield police families, also on the sides of them planting evidences. These are foreign and domestic medical and military too. So there are people with a name Kolvenskis also involved with the area near a Judge Knapp. And right after I wrote one of the counter feeders on one of the social media Facebook pages, had a scene with there's a character named Reggie, and he gets killed, and then there's a colonial Reggie, because there's acting inside the movie, and the colors are reversed. But in one scene, there's a scene in a park in Weathersfield. I put on there, and there's the lightning. There's something I was thinking about, and it was obvious that I was thinking about it, which is my character may all jump up and down because then the lightning comes because some kid is sitting on a thing. He has this invention where he's got a little thing going, and he's got electric thing, and the lightning storm is coming, and he's sitting on the tires on plywood. And this boxer or sports athlete is the character who wants to be my trainer. One of the people, which are other two are two old English teachers I had, and it's not real. It's not based on reality, but it's based on reality because other has been communicated for our founders. Then they communicate for us to communicate. So you have to understand how those laws conceived our founders as a criminal enterprise and how they were already archetypal criminal enterprises. The names of the countries, the locations, areas, and states were and are when the leaders aren't forcing it because this has only been relative ways. Locations, areas, and states are reliant upon being and having been entertained. Criminal and citizens' natures of positive treatments with fact-sheet nature. A, therefore B. Boolean logic is tactically delusions raw and tactically apart from reasons means to discern how we are hyper additional nature. And that stuff cannot be denied. See, we have contracts that are of nature's criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. Hartford Hospital is confessing, demonstrated, recorded, confirmed. They are refusing to respond because they're involved. In other words, they have fake conversations about legal cases that where they have roles with federal criminals and they interbranch with it, and the difference of it. See, the former director of the FBI has been using his weight with people associated with Hartford Hospital, New Britain hospitals, medical fire to campuses. They have fire campuses in West Hartford. They have people involved with the policing associated with governors. They have roles with training the male and female officers on CCSU. They're still criminally foreign with tactically delusions raw. You're going to examine the delusions of the Parker English. Was that Parker English on Wells Road? I mean, not Wells Road, Walker Hill Road. Something about people on Walker Hill Road involved with the intelligence community with the names involved with the former director of the FBI and the DeMorrow family and the Kerr family has also been with the ones at Trinity College. I don't know her name. She confessed, recorded, demonstrated, confirmed. A Kaloa family and a Kerr family. I think it was a Kerr at a park one time. I don't know if it was him, but it was involved anyway. In other words, in that corners of the building, there's a former Mayor Gold, and they're forging and switching names with New Britain Superior Court, Hartford Courts, and Connecticut District Court people to prevent people from countering them sticking fake evidences in databases, fake ties and natures of ties to themselves and to people tied to themselves. They've been using corners of streets, increasingly the recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They have names on off Hangdog Lane and Two Rod Highway where they run into each other and the conjunctions to it, like the Berlin Turnpike and like Route 3, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders against complete strangers. And they'll tell you this, but they painted themselves in corners. So you have to get them on paper. So Weathersfield Pizza also has roles with this and with criminally foreign influence uses of exceptions too. And sequence shifts. Maria Fazzino is recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed by others by herself and by a Stephen Stocko and other men intimately in other ways tied to her. with the Stephen Stockel fake conversations we made with the Wethersfield police, planting evidences. I want a response from them switching names to Wethersfield Police. Wethersfield Police. This is right next to the state judicial branch offices of Connecticut. A Wethersfield Pizza has roles with a Violet family and with a Cololo family and with people named Spada and Delafera, with judges, probate court judges, with medical corruption at elderly homes, at child campuses, at medical campuses, at fire campuses, with intelligence communities, with unmarked police forms. There's a Mike Delafero involved with people from Connecticut boxing gyms planting evidences with courts and with people that work with the prisons. Sandy Hook has the prisons there. They have also the regular campuses and the fire campuses. Sandy Hook Promise and Alex Jones are all involved too, preventing mandated law. They have the courts involved, countering him, involved collusions, hiding that too. Get out of Newtown. What are you guys doing with Newtown? Speaking for the law. Don't leave out how why Madison had to counter extort those other tactically delusion law founders. Don't these people are operating on summaries of American history with uses of names that leave out how their tactically delusions wrought, used remotely, pretending they don't realize rules with slavery, and blaming it on our founders, where our founders told us to get it off their names. They said, get the Constitution on the bridge, get the torture done, and address George Washington's extortion honestly. And we're going to deal with the fact-keeping nature of slavery of themselves, sickly distinctly from everyone else. Yeah. So what we do is admit, I mean, understand how countries have to do, please, Palestine don't hurt the Americans. And what I understand, in other words, we're in a semi-ancient trap. The fake science, they had too many times, they're too long to have weapons, means to all this stuff. And meanwhile, they don't even address the suburbs are tactically denatured, let alone the cities. This was designed to measure and maintain. While they employed criminal insidiousness means to make positive the only ones available, because now that it's been too long, tactically denatured the earth. Ciao Italia is the name of a cookbook. The author in it, she says that her favorite fish is a largemouth bass, freshwater fish. They live under the ice. We don't see them in the stores. We have forever chemicals, PFAS. I don't even know um how to spell these. Forever chemicals, poisons in the water, in the flesh of the fish. The ocean's polluted. Oh, but we need the jobs. In other words, all we need to do is admit that we all need injunctive reliefs. Space means open up out of nowhere too. Means to fix the not just the grounds tactical being haven't been tactically identity denatured, but its identity of relationship to itself is denatured too. That includes water exceptions, the exception nature. We are to discern criminal insidiousness nature. See, nature, again, as a negative identity of relationship to itself. If it's a criminal insidious nature or positive treatment or not. And ILO's Home Services has roles with retired and standing mayors and people associated with them, planting fake things on campuses, little cheap charity tricks, and roles with charity under the guise of charity, with child abuse, elderly abuse, federal evidence is crimes, federal rules of evidence is crimes. Identity theft, fraud, slanders, roles with natures of organized crime and of gun crimes while being, for example, while being pretending to be against it and pretending it's debatable if you put it on paper. A whole bunch of people have a Joe Aiello involved with houses near me. involved with Weatherfield Police, with other police forms, and other foreign and domestic, military, overt criminal enterprises, and child abusers, including leaders of the kids, more. And I caught the principal child abuser first. There's a guy with the name Emmett, and there are more with the schools involved with this. They're making me speak online because they already attached me and everyone around me to fake conversations since I was a kid, intercities too. Now this is leading up to the World Trade Center. That's why I didn't tell my parents what I caught them doing. I caught more. I didn't know that the FBI director was involved. The FBI has predicate acts methods recorded with judges and their family members of people that work with their courts, their intimate ties, roles with foreign and domestic military, remote uses of deans and their family members for remote uses of their sense and sensibilities, remote uses of principals and of their family members for remote uses of their sense and sensibilities, remote uses of psychiatrists and of sociologists with the schools, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, rot still, black pupils. Here, we will take them here. But by means, you have to follow mandated law for them. I asked many times on Judging Freedom, the YouTube channel of Judging Freedom, Judge Napolitano, leading up to the World Trade Center attack. In that context and since, he has roles with intelligence community information with databases that is criminally foreign influence and tactically delusions wrought simultaneously. Their Facebook pages are used for sick things, boxing. The patient, they also have to hide life progressions from all kinds of having fake things in their databases. They can't afford any longer the quality of fact treatment nature necessary and capable of being to answer our questions at locations, areas, and states, everywhere the human species body is, forcing leaders to stay known, only known, force self-value, criminal foreign influence, positive treatments or negative treatments, subject treatments, leaving out exceptions in exception nature, and or the way because they're using it, they're just faking things as leaving it out the way nature uses it hyper additionally from any way we could have revealed, which has three parts: identities of possession, even over the smallest finite part of a complex thing. Three three distinct identities of possession over its grouped parts, and three possessions identities of possession over its simultaneous value as as an identity. Every identity has a semi-nature relationship to the complete, to that which has manifest each species body with shared things, even when they're different species. It has our species, black pupils, whites of eyes, and it has what is hyper evidential how that was left out with the conversation about black and white, which simultaneously not only is that left out, that's measured to maintain left out the nature that would have discovered. See, if that had not been left out alone, we would have discovered also the breaching method was left out. And that's what serious thing that you don't want to leave out. Because that breaching method also used and uses remotely self-value roles with itself as roles with systems tactical ulterior from the one that is inseparable from all finite grouped and simultaneous value slash yes of anything, even if something could be made up. This is observable per science. But so was relativity. Math is all about relativity. And it's about identity, and identity is about relativity ways greater than and more finite than math. While how math is about it. See, but we don't have honest to the answers and uses of the names of the sciences and of their narratives by the times, the time. Certain type of victim slash hyper victim is going to speak for an economic, worth, leaving out how the economics, the all location slash s, all natures of difference were used to hide its own. And simultaneously, that's hiding nature's own. And simultaneously, that's keeping blame to other things others ourselves. Are the proofs of it. That's how relative to where and how that stupid quality of factory nature is up there speaking with sophistication about calm or aggression. It's about the simultaneous as a nature that's appreciating the hyper a simultaneous. It's appreciating the invisible but still discernible, but still the hyper invisible but still discernible too. And that comes with contemplating that, trying to not miss the smallest finite detail or the significance of it. Vaccines. You know that worms walk into bodies of water. And even when it's not raining, and even more when it's raining. No, and when it's raining, there are going to be less bugs on top of the ponds. And the freshwater fish, they take them off the top of the pond, they land in the water, boom. So that way there's a food chain. But see, all these New England ponds went extinct. That landscape theater, the whole time, it came from before our founders were born. The suburbs were designed for torture, extortion, and slavery. Only the extent of it is debatable. But the fact that it is even debated, or the significance of it, oh, I don't care about that. People will say that, who are not even, in other words, Central Connecticut State University has roles with people from Wethersfield. That's in New Britain, Connecticut. They have roles with police chief, like a police chief Knapp. I think he was a police chief of Wethersfield, KNAPP. People that lived near him and Justin Glavinskas. I never had a class with him. There are people that I went to my grammar school I never had a class with. I never had interaction with. They're in the background putting fake things in databases with little tricks with the intelligence community, as per how I know about and how we could observe things tied to Sandy Hook, Newtown, Connecticut, as the people involved with Wethersfield, Connecticut, Rocky Hill campuses too, Rocky Hill students, teachers, make sure I get a response because there are more people involved forging and switching names, males and female officers involved with abuses of your kids, including medical community. So make sure I get a response from that school and with confessions of the roles with the names, with the one switching names with the cops. In other words, with the name McGee. Three different ones used the name McGee. They said they had one with the name McGee. These are one of the cops involved with extortion and uses of Judge Napolitano's self-valued roles, whether he realizes or not, used remotely. Follow mandated law for the World Trade Center, because these are people before the World Trade Center attack. I caught with collusions from people from my town, Wethersfield, at West Hartford locations, with people intercities. Will record confess. These are also vertical and horizontal confessions. These are also people involved with recorded consciously used remotely names of all sides on all sides of criminal and civil cases. The names with the courts and with the hallways of the courts and lawyers on both sides, including online recorded. There's a Trantola involved fabricating audio and video rolls with WFSB, WTNH, Fox Connecticut News, child offenders, people involved with the intelligence community, private, military, foreign switching names. Get on paper, punks. Get on paper now. Make it the judges' names on paper, the ones tied to them, to this Trantolo and Trantolo too, and get a response for the Emmett and the other people recorded involved with wire crimes and child abuses with and the confessions of the principal child abuser. These are also courts with have been crimes with their patients and criminals before they got caught, and because they had roles with it, and they've been blaming things on other things other than and their motives. They're planting fake motives with foreign bodies involved. A whole bunch of criminal enterprises involved with the same family members from Old Wethersfield, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, criminally foreign influence conversations with their teachers, like a Mr. Neville, whether they realize it or not. In other words, Mr. Neville's involved with something to do with planting evidences on Zion Street next to Trinity College, with houses that with families that live there, like people associated with Johnny Duke, the dinosaur of boxing. Joel repeated and confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Also, people with the name Demora involved with the intelligence community planting evidences. I don't even think he knew about it, or at least to an extent he didn't know about it. But that's one of the houses on Zion Street. And then I found out they have roles with the houses on, and they confirmed on Covington Street in the Britain. And they have roles with, in other words, with Johnny Duke. That was, I never saw Johnny Duke on Covington Street in the Britain. I saw him on Brittany Farms, and they changed the names of the road up there. Has something to do with the people involved with the World Trade Center attack, with the Hartford courts, judges, and prosecutors in the Britain's courts delaying and preventing names from being revealed. These are also people with Wethersfield election locations in intercities. These are influences over all ages and natures of campuses and of politicians and of their family members. Also, the difference of them being politicians in police forms and courts, family members, as per their roles with overt criminal enterprises through time. Since I was a kid, so there are people involved with Quinnipiac University, also with prosecutors and judges planting evidences and filming illusions, and where and how they have roles with methods to keep all sides, where they use they use cases in interbranch locations remotely, and they're showing how to do it themselves because they need to hide that having been. They need to hide having self-value roles with natures of and uses of readings of statutes. Like, for example, they have a judge in Napolitano. All judges, all everyone's a certain type of victim slash hyper victim, and we're supposed to address how we all are simultaneously, distinctly, but also non-distinctly. To do this, we have to list how we are distinctly. Two, first. So, in other words, Judge Napolitano is being lied to. People who are pretending they have integrity by what they put for lists and conjunctions, like programming conjunctions to lists and involved with their programming. There are still lists and defenses of them with logic and natures of logic that are still criminally foreign influenced and or tactically delusions wrought, which is also where relevant relative to where and to how. We have the definition of psychopath. I'm going to teach you guys about, because the people that are that are the experts on such things are still criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought, and fabricating evidences and conversations with people and with their worst patients and criminals as collusions with their family members, and how motivated to that and how it was affected. That's also hyper evidentially recorded. Do not underestimate the power of black pupils, white survive, and the revelation. When you use truths that are true always, not denying the slightest sequence shift, not denying any slightest detail, not valuing anyone else using that truth for lies, because it comes with revelation. It comes with the revelation of how that was left out. It comes with the revelation of how the breaching method was left out. We're going to examine this. We're going to examine the nature. We're going to why and how we need this word nature for identity, because we're talking about it is functional slash hyperfunctional, and that's three ways: functional, distinctly, the hyper simultaneous, a distinct identity of simultaneous. Nature shows us. That means that the identity of nature. We'll examine vaccine. So that's what you unite behind. All suburbs, let alone all cities, are tacked to nature since semi-ancient times. These are means that have been below standards of nature itself, the prior directions. We're going to put unity better than free. and come out of this tactically denatured semi-ancient trap, only capable of having extinctions, of getting dirtier. Vaccines. We lift the water. We have it. It takes. It takes. It can be used to create and to save more money lifting water than it takes to drop it, and it's way more beautiful. Yeah. Nature answers our questions. Don't disbelieve. Who disbelieves? Pick one name.